Okay, well, thank you for staying with us here, and for having the honor for completing the tour of Belgium in cell therapy. Bone Therapeutics. Well, we actually developed ourselves as a leader in unique regenerative cell therapy in the field of bone repair and fracture prevention. We're most advanced in that field. We have 2 phase 3 trials ongoing. We have 3 phase 2 trials initiated or ongoing, and we are using a unique differentiated approach. We're actually using differentiated bone-forming cells, which is what we have not seen yet today in other examples. Next to that, all our approaches are really going for a minimally invasive approach, which is within the field of orthopaedics quite unique, quite a paradigm shift, and very important for the benefit of the patient, something that has been said earlier today. Always look for the benefit of the patient. Well, this certainly brings benefits to the patient, as we'll see later. We're a fully integrated company. We have our own production facilities, small scale today, but we're moving to a larger facility in the course of 2015 and then finally in 2016, which will be scalable and meet our requirements in the longer term for clinical trials and also for commercial sales once we get there. It was established in 2006 based on the research work of Dr. Valérie Gongy, who is head of rheumatology of the department of the Erasmus Hospital in Brussels. And we are employing today about 70 people at group level, mainly scientists and people with higher education. We have a very strong IP position, 9 patent families. Some have been granted, some are still under evaluation, and we also have obtained the orphan drug designation for our product PREOB for treating osteonecrosis, and that both in the US and in Europe. What makes us really unique? Well, we're looking at unmet medical needs in the field of orthopedics. What we've seen in orthopedics is really there has been a lack of innovation. If you know that the best prosthesis available today on the market has been developed in the 1940s. So it's a field where there's really a lot of work to do, and certainly there's a lot of work to do in the field of regenerative medicine. So our current treatments are associated with the current treatments are associated with major complications. They're really long recovery times for the patients and a high risk that a reintervention is necessary to really get the patient back on his feet. Bone Therapeutics, as I said, our approach is very different. We are developing an innovative cell therapy products for the repair of bone tissues. And this is, innovative in the sense that we are very unique because we are really producing osteoblastic cells which are bone forming and really should accelerate any process that is to do with bone repair or fracture prevention. It offers a significant improvement versus, current standard of care, and what we've seen, what other competitors are offering today, and that basically to the minimal invasive administration that we do, and that is really well illustrated. I think there must be a pointer here or somewhere here. If you see, the top picture, that is what orthopedics is like. Today, the current standard of care, you have to open up the patients, you place an allograft or an autograft, and this is what Bone Therapeutics is actually after. This is a patient with a severe fracture. You can see the osteosynthesis is there that was put in place after the accident. And what we're doing is instead of opening up the patient for treating him when his fracture is not healing, we actually introduce a fine trephine into the fracture zone, release our cell product, and that is what's happening. This is happening in a day clinic in about 20 minutes. This is the team, a small team today. We are actually going to do an announcement of one other member that will be joining very shortly. But I wanted to focus on the 2 people who established the company in 2006, which is Valérie Gongy, being the person behind the technology together with Enrico Bastianelli. They both MDs from formation, from education, and they have a very long-standing experience in this particular field. Valérie as a doctor in the field, Enrico has built his experience in industry, but always working in areas related to therapies for bone diseases. What are we working on? Well, we're working with 2 products. We have 2 platforms. We have the autologous platform that we worked on initially on, and we also developed in the meantime a new allogeneic cell therapy product, which is called ALLOB. And these 2 products are used for a number of different indications. First area of indication, the fracture axis, so the bone repair area. There we're working on non-unions. Non-unions are diseases which don't heal after a period of 6 months, and really for the patient, a very serious situation, not being able to go to work while really being, at home and immobile. Next to that, with the ALLOB product, we are looking at impaired healings or delayed unions. Delayed unions are the same type of fractures, severe fractures, which are not healing after a period of three months. And very important there is that very much the orthopaedics are not treating these patients. They decide to wait treating the patients because, well, the procedure they have to apply, which you've seen on one of the previous slides, is that invasive that they say, well, let's give nature a chance and wait for a couple of more months. For the patients, of course, this is not very opportune. Then in the spine and hip axis, there we're more in the not in the bone repair, but fracture prevention. We are doing work around osteonecrosis. Osteonecrosis is a painful disorder of the hip occurring with very young patients between 30 and 50 years old, and ultimately always leading to a fracture of the femoral head, which means a hip replacement. And having a hip replacement at that age is quite uninteresting because, well, it will last for 10 to 15 years for these patients as they're very mobile. It's very different than having, well, your 80 or 90-year-old grandma having this hip prosthesis. She will last, but that will last forever. But with young patients, they're very mobile and they have to, well, get a renewal of that. And you can't have renewals all the time, as this might be very difficult. Another area is osteoporosis, where we are running a small trial today. We come back on that. And then spine fusion is the final area where we believe that we can add with our cell products to the existing therapies a very important improvement to the therapy instead of accelerating the healing process and helping the patients. In spine fusions, what we see is that current treatments are actually very often result in a failure, and almost 30% of the patients need to have, well, a fixing of the operation, another intervention, where we believe we can, with the cell product, adding to the traditional therapy, we could do some major advantage. If you're looking at markets, well, our work started initially around this osteonecrosis, which is a niche product for which we have an orphan drug disease recognition. We moved into the field of fracture repair with non-unions and delayed unions, which is really where we want to be a game changer in this field, changing the practice of the orthopedic, and then a number of potential blockbuster products for osteoporosis and spine fusions, or interbody fusion as we call it. This is our pipeline. As I explained, we have 2 products in a phase 3. First of all, osteonecrosis. We have been in phase 3 for a while now. We have treated a number of projects after a very successful phase 2, which I will explain in a second. We have, as orthopedics is always a domain where you have to work a long time before you see the effective results. We have a follow-up period of 24 months there. In non-unions, we are also in that phase 3. We have a 12-month follow-up period. And then with osteoporosis, where we entered in a phase 1-2A, very particular there, we are not administering in the way I've just shown on the picture, but it's an intravenous application where we actually know looking if the cells are reeling, finding the spots where they have to do fracture prevention, in the sense they have to find the spine and they have to find the hip zone where they can result in some activity and hopefully restore the balance between osteoblast, osteoclast, and result in new formation of bone, which would be quite unique as a treatment. Then with our new product, or allogeneic product, we are, as I said, we entered into a phase 1-2A where we treated first patients now, and we hopefully will be able in the coming months to give you some results on that for delayed unions. And we initiated trials in spine fusions, for, well, as an assisting in the current procedure or as a rescue procedure for people where they had actually a failure of what had happened before to them as a standard treatment. Coming back on, the results we had in this phase 1-2B for osteonecrosis. Well, for those who are not very familiar with it, osteonecrosis is a disease which develops in a number of stages. Once you're in the stage 3, it's a bit too late, and you probably will end up, as you see here, you get a lesion here where you see that is the head of the femoral head that goes into the hip. And you see this lesion. Well, ultimately, when you further develop, when the disease further develop due to the necrosis, really, of this part will collapse, and you will need a hip replacement because this is a very painful situation to have. So what was our ambition? Well, just try to avoid this situation and treat the patients in an early stage as possible. We had a randomized controlled phase B2 trial. We treated there 63 hips, which doesn't mean 63 patients, but some patients, it's a bilateral disease, so we had to treat both sides with the reference or with the cell therapy product. And then after a 36-month follow-up, well, what did we see? That we had a real good results on improvements in hip and pain and in function compared to baseline. We had a 40% increasement compared to the reference, and the reference here was a bone marrow transplant in this same zone where we inject the cells. We had a 63% improvement. And then in respect of fracture reduction, we have a 43% reduction in fracture risk for the patients treated with our product. So non-unions, where we also completed a phase 2. What we have there, we have treated 28 patients in this trial. And what we see here, well, is a patient with a very severe fracture where you have, well, the osteosynthesis, which is a nail that goes on the inside. And this was a woman, 40 years old, who was suffering from the extraction for more than 2 years. The whole population of patients had fractures for a period between 7 months and multiple years. And some of them had been treated with well, almost all of them actually had been treated with the standard of care, which was an autograft, as we've seen in the picture in the very beginning. What we see after treatment with PREOB injecting in the zone, we see a complete healing of the bone, and that we had for actually 25 of the 30 patients we had in the trial. For ALLOB, we're doing a very similar procedure. We are actually treating the patients with the ALLOB product, and what you see here, well, what we would like to point out is really the minimally invasiveness of the procedure. The osteosynthesis is there for the patient, and we injecting through this tree fine in the fracture zone the ALLOB product, and hopefully we get very similar results as we had with the PREOB product here. Spine fusion, well, there again, we're using the same technique. This is a standard type of operation. There is a cage that is filled with a filler, which is calcium phosphate. So we will add cells to that, and hopefully this procedure is much more effective than what it is today without the cells added to it. Finally, a bit of market. What can this mean? Populations we are looking at. Well, addressable population for osteonecrosis for the US, Europe, and Japan is about 170,000 patients. The addressable population for non-union is about 200,000. There's a threefold people developing a delayed union of 700,000 patients, and then it's spine fusion, and we're talking about lumbar spine fusion. We're talking about 500,000 patients. If you translate that in a potential market, there will be a market for the product about 2 to 3 billion euros per annum for using these procedures. In respect of competition, very briefly, while the competition for bone therapeutics is standard orthopaedics mainly. There is, in regenerative treatments, almost nothing is there. For severe osteoporosis is the segment that we are looking for, people who not respond to current treatments. There is one new product under development from Amgen. We don't know if it will really work in severe osteoporosis, but that is the field that we're aiming at with a treatment that will bring, but we hope will bring bone formation for the patients again. Spine fusion, well, we've seen that in a previous presentation from Mesoblast. They had a tier 2 project on that as well. Manufacturing, I briefly expanded on that already. We have facilities today for meeting our clinical trials. We're moving into a new building, as you will see, as of 2015, and the production facility itself, 2016. This will be at Gosselies, south of Brussels. We might have to do one thing, move it to the coast, because that we've seen in successful stories today. They're all at the coast and have palm trees around them, but we don't have that here in Belgium. So very briefly, most advanced, we have a robust pipeline with 5 products. We have a solid IP position. We have, as been told several times today, our own GMP production facility fully under control. The new building will not put any cash burden on the company, as this has been financed through a separate structure. So that will be interesting as well. We have unique products, autologous and allogeneic. We have proven efficacy and safety results already. We hope to report on that for the allogeneic product very shortly. And then we have a first-line positioning coming with the minimally invasive approach. We have a significant revenue potential and an experienced team on board. Thank you.